Harvard University said on the night of November 15, 2023, World War III was prevented. What did Biden and Xi Jinping of China agree on? What did Joe Biden of the US and Xi Jinping of China summit really talk about? What is the significance of the Biden-Xi summit November 15? In one line, two adult leaders having a serious, honest, private conversation about the most important bilateral relationship in the world, comments Graham Allison, professor of government at Harvard University, where he has taught for 5 decades, and founding dean of the School of Government of John F. Kennedy of Harvard. According to him, as they did a year ago in Bali on the sidelines of the G20 summit, the two leaders further reaffirmed the two contradictory but nevertheless inevitable events. First, the US and China will be the fiercest rivals history has ever seen. Second, the very survival of each nation requires a degree of cooperation from the other. The war scenario? Both know very well that a war between these two great powers would be a disaster for both. They have internalized the profound truth most succinctly stated by President Reagan: a nuclear war cannot be won, since at the end of it everyone's own country will be destroyed. Both understand that avoiding war requires serious, honest conversation between themselves, their trusted aides, and their governments to prevent misunderstandings, miscalculations, and the impact of third-party accidents or incidents from dragging them into a war which no nation wants. At the same time, Biden is under no illusions about Xi Jinping's ambitions or his own ambitions. In Xi Jinping's grand narrative, China rises unstoppable and the US declines irrevocably. Washington watchers willing to embrace the newly fashionable narrative that China has peaked should look at the numbers. While the headlines scream about positive signs in the US economy and negative headwinds facing China, the facts are hard to ignore. In the absence of a sharp departure from current trends, when 2023 ends in 2 months, the facts will show that China's economy has grown twice as fast as the US economy. Similarly, as the US has become more involved in supporting the Ukraine war and Israel's response to October 7, China has joined much of the rest of the world in advocating the end to bloodshed and calling for negotiations for peace. As China's state-run People's Daily recently puts it, the balance of global power is tipping towards a rising East and a declining West. In the words of Xi Jinping, the more difficult the moment, the more confident we must be, he said. From Roosevelt to Trump, as surely as Teddy Roosevelt led the United States into what was certain to become an American century, Xi Jinping is equally certain that the 21st century will belong to China. He's determined to lead China beyond its century of humiliation, quote-unquote, at the hands of Western powers into a new era of Chinese greatness. And long before President Trump raised the MAGA banner, Xi Jinping had proclaimed that the time had come to make China great again, in his words, the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. He predicts that China will displace the US as a dominant power in Asia Pacific during his reign, which he expects to last at least until the year 2035, and in time perhaps the world. Biden and his national security team know that the US has been the world's leading power for decades since World War II, and they are determined to keep it that way. They're proud of the international order that the US has built that has allowed the world to experience the unprecedented 78 years of long peace and has allowed citizens both in the US and around the world to enjoy greater increases in their incomes, health, and standards of life from any similar period in recorded history. And they're determined to do everything they can to ensure that this continues. So in relation with China, Biden's goal is to shape the conditions under which this competition between American democracy and Chinese party-led autocracy can play out peacefully for decades to come without falling into the trap that so often has he ensnared the opponents of Thucydides, the involuntary war. And this is from Banking News Greece. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.